Today I'm going to be sharing with you the birth story of my most recent birth, and I'm just excited to share this with you. It was a natural birth and was very fast, and this is actually going to be split into two parts. So this is part one of my birth story, and then you can stay tuned for next week for the second part if you want to hear the rest of it. And so just kind of to start off, my due date was January 7th. And towards the end of December, I was noticing some like labor signs, just like more consistent contractions, just the Braxton Hicks, but they were stronger. And just some things otherwise in my body, just feeling like labor was more imminent. And I was also doing quite a bit just around the Christmas holiday season. And in the back of my mind, I was kind of anxious because I was hoping for his birthday to be later in January so that he would feel like he has his own birthday, just kind of away from the holidays. And but ultimately I would just keep praying, like ultimately God is in control, and just to celebrate him and his birth whenever God would have him come. And so December came and went, and then as his due date was drawing near, right on his due date, I started everything that is recommended to put yourself into labor. I mean, I had the day all planned out. I had different as an activity, all kinds of things. I was gonna put myself into labor on my due date. One of my reasons was I did not want to have a big baby, or just maybe possibly a more difficult labor because he is bigger, perhaps. My biggest baby was 8'12". That's my oldest son, 8 pounds, 12 ounces. And then my second daughter, she was 7 pounds, 5 ounces. And then my third daughter was 8 pounds even. Now, 2 of my 3 pregnancies prior, I was overdue. My firstborn, he was 2 weeks overdue. And then my second born, she was 8 days early, and then my third born was 8 days late. So I'm kind of used to being past my due date, I guess, but I was just not really being patient this time around. I think it's because in my mind, I was like feeling all of these labor signs in December, so I was thinking, this is gonna happen soon, or at least right around his due date. And anyway, so a couple of days after my due date, I texted my doula, and I was like, I think I'm gonna try castor oil because nothing is happening. Now, all of a sudden around my due date, I'm having like very little Braxton Hicks contractions and activity and things. And I'm like, what's happening? I thought he was getting ready, that things were gonna happen soon. And so I texted her and said, I'm gonna try the castor oil. And she really just asked me, why are you pushing so hard to try to put yourself into labor and make this happen now? And it just really made me realize, I think I was almost trying so hard that it was counterproductive because I was just so focused on it. So I just really took a step back and decided just to try to relax and keep myself busy and just, again, trust God's timing, not mine. And so days kept going on, and I kept waking up every morning, I'm still pregnant. And it's so interesting when you go past your due date, sometimes a day can feel like a month. Just not knowing when it's gonna happen, or even jokingly, I would say like, okay, like a week after my due date, I was like, feel like I'm gonna be pregnant forever. And I really could just feel him getting bigger, it felt like. And my doula was concerned about castor oil, and I just see different conflicting opinions and views out there as far as castor oil, that it could possibly cause some complications, like severe dehydration, severe diarrhea, and possibly meconium. And I did try the castor oil cocktail that my midwife had given me with my firstborn because I was 2 weeks past due. And we did all of the extra testing. He scored perfectly. And so she said with my firstborn, my midwife then, she said you could try this castor oil cocktail. And if he's ready, he'll come out. If he's not, it won't harm him. And so I tried that, and it absolutely worked. And it was a great labor and delivery, natural, etc. And then I did try it with my third born because she was past her due date. It didn't really work, but I didn't really have any negative side effects either. And so again, I just kept praying for wisdom, like what to do, or just patience, to keep being patient. And I just felt like I know my body, and from previous experience, I haven't experienced any of the negative side effects really of the castor oil to those extents. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a try. And it was 10 days past my due date, and I was like, okay, I am done. This is it. I'm just gonna take it and give it a try and go from there and see how it goes. Because again, I was doing the extra testing this far past my due date. Everything was looking great, which I was very thankful for, but just wanted to go ahead and give it a try. And that was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon that I started drinking it. It takes me about an hour to kind of sip it and get it down. I can put the recipe down below if you're interested, because it's not just castor oil straight. It's mixed in with some other things that can kind of help slightly give it a flavor, but it also, I think, purposeful fiber, things like that. So yeah, I can link that down below if you're interested in that. But as always, I'm not a medical professional. Always consult your midwife or doctor to get the clearance on taking that or not. And so around 4 o'clock, contractions started coming pretty noticeably. Like, these are the real contractions. However, I did not want to get my hopes up, like, okay, we'll see if it continues, into full-on active labor. And I was kind of going by the 5-1-1 rule, contractions 5 minutes apart, 1 minute long, going on for an hour. So I was like, yeah, these are mild. And with my second and third born, my labors were lasted for a couple of days, even off and on. And so I was like, I have plenty of time. I'm not going to get excited just yet. We'll see how this turns out. And my daughter had ballet, so I was like, yep, I'm going to take her to ballet. It was 25 minutes away. While she was in ballet, I went over to the library, and I was just, my contractions were coming, and I was like, I wonder, they do seem to be coming consistently. And so I timed them. They were about 6 to 8 minutes apart, and I was like, well, I don't know if that's consistent yet. I don't think it's been going like over an hour consistently at that yet. And so I picked my daughter up, and they were getting kind of intense on the way home. And I was like, ooh, I need to focus and drive and work through these contractions at the same time. And I get home, and I'm trying to get everyone dinner. And I was like, okay, I think this is it. I think it's happening. And I was trying to get some laundry folded and put away, like get everything done before we would need to leave for the hospital. Even let my doula know, I think this is possibly going to happen. And my husband encouraged me to call my mom and come get the kids. So she came. And after I called her, she has like a 45-minute drive. I was really thankful I did, because things were really picking up. However, again, my husband could see just the signs and that I was like in active labor, and I was maybe still in denial. I don't know. Again, I was waiting for it to be that intensity to be going for a longer period of time. But I was just noticing, he was like, I think we need to go to the hospital. Just one quick side note, we have done the Bradley method with all of our labor and delivery, which is basically like a husband coached childbirth. And I absolutely love and appreciate so much my husband's support. Couldn't have done all of my labors without him and his amazing support. And so I'm just so grateful for that. But he could see the signs in me that he thinks we should go to the hospital. And I never want to be the one that like shows up and like, oh, you're only 1 or 2 centimeters, go back home. And so I was just like, no. And things like that. I wanted to make sure that it was going on for about an hour. Now, mind you, with my other labors, I do tend to dilate pretty quickly, progress through the first stage of labor pretty quickly. With my son, I showed up at the hospital, and they said, you're 2 to 3 centimeters, you have a bit of work to do. And I was like, okay, this is intense, but just focus. And he was my firstborn, so I think they were thinking we have plenty of time. She's only 2 or 3 centimeters. 45 minutes later, I was completely dilated and ready to push. And so that was pretty quick. And then with my second born, again, labor had been going on a few days. And finally, it was getting like 5 minutes apart. So we called and she's like, okay, well, if you feel like it's too much, you can just come in. And we show up, and she checked me, and then she checked me again. I was like, great, she's gonna say you're 1 to 2 centimeters, go back home. She was like, you're 9 centimeters and 60% effaced. And so I had progressed all of that work, not knowing if it was real labor or not. I was almost completely ready and dilated. Then with my third born, a similar thing. I had a doctor's checkup, and I called and said, I'll just wait and see you in the hospital because I'm in labor. And they were like, why don't you just come in? And then she was encouraging me to get a good night's rest so that I had strength for labor the next day. And she was like, oh, while you're here, do you want me to check you? And I was like, sure, before I go home. And I was 8 to 9 centimeters. So instead, she had me go straight to that hospital. So I guess I do have a history of dilating pretty quickly. That first part is, goes pretty smoothly for me, I guess you could say. And so this time around, I was like starting to notice that I was only having about a minute and a half in between my contractions. And I was like, I'm not getting much of a break, but yet they hadn't been going on that long. And so I was like, maybe I should try to get in the shower to try to relax because I'm just not getting much of a break. And I stood up, and my husband was helping me through a contraction because like every movement was like bringing on a contraction. And all of a sudden my water broke, and then we're like, okay, we need to get to the hospital. And so we were like just really rushing as much as we could to get out the door, but I had to keep stopping because I kept having intense contractions. And by the time I was going around the corner to get into the van, I felt like I needed to push. And that was so scary to me because I was not like mentally prepared to give birth at home or on the way to the hospital. We had a good 25 minutes of everything goes smoothly drive. And so that is actually where I'm going to stop my labor story for this week, just to share the rest of it next week. But that was definitely a really scary moment for me, is just not even being a good 25-minute drive from the hospital and feeling like I'm ready to push. And so I will share more with you next week. So stick around. We'll see you next week.